13% of XRP could just vanish from circulation soon. Seriously, when I first heard that, I nearly did a spit take with my morning coffee. And no, this isn't a glitch in the Matrix or some kind of sci-fi movie plot. It's actually something that is brewing right now that almost nobody is actually talking about. And it got me down a rabbit hole. So, for context, I'm scrolling through crypto news as usual, and suddenly I see this wild claim that a huge chunk of XRP might get locked up, basically taken off of the market. Now, my first thought was, come on, that sounds like clickbait. But then I dug a little deeper, and what I found kind of blew my mind. It's one part crypto mystery, one part economics lesson, and another kind of part of it that got me rethinking a hell of a lot. So if you hold any XRP, or heck, even if you don't, this story is a ride that you're going to want to hear because it might just hint at something big being on the horizon. Alright, so here's how it all started. I'm watching this XRP community guy on YouTube, goes by the name of Digital Asset Investor, or DAI for short. Now he's sounding the alarm, saying XRP supply crunch incoming, brace yourselves. Now crypto is full of pretty wild claims, right? And I'm a bit of a skeptical guy, but he mentions two projects that kind of caught my ear. One called mXRP from a group named Alexa, and another called FXRP from the Flare network. Now, according to him, these two could end up locking away billions of XRP. So naturally, I'm thinking to myself, okay, well, if that is true, it's pretty huge. So I went down the rabbit hole to investigate things further. First, I had to figure out what the heck mXRP even is. Turns out that it's a new yield-bearing project, from a network that's basically you deposit your XRP and in return you get mXRP, which you can use on other chains to earn yield or do fancy DeFi kind of things. It's kind of like putting your dollars in a bank and getting an IOU that you can spend elsewhere. All while your dollars, or XRP in this case, actually sit there earning you some interest. Now the idea is that your XRP gets staked or put to work, and mXRP is your passport to play in the Ethereum's sandbox or wherever else, without actually leaving the XRP ecosystem. Anyway, I found an interview with 𝗗𝗶𝘀𝗰𝗱, and probably murdering your name, I apologize, really not my forte. But anyway, he's the co-founder of this platform, the mXRP guy. And he was asked, what success would actually look like for mXRP. And his answer kind of made my jaw drop. He basically said that if they had to pick one measure, it would be assets under management. So they want to manage $10 billion worth of XRP. Yeah, 10 billion. That was with a B. So I had to double check that. And at today's price, that would be roughly 5% of all of the XRP that was out there. So 5% of the entire circulating supply locked up into this one project. It's pretty ambitious, right? Now, on to the second project, FXRP, on the Flare network. Now, if you're not familiar with Flare, it's a smart contract platform that's friendly with XRP, basically letting XRP do things in DeFi that it normally just can't do on other networks. So think of FXRP as a kind of wrapped version of XRP, but on Flare. And it kind of lets XRP holders use their coins in Flare's ecosystem for things like yield farming, lending, etc. So Flare's co-founder, Hugo, was on the Paul Barron show, and he got asked how much XRP he expects to have on Flare. And Hugo didn't really blink. He just said he wants to see 5 billion XRP secured on Flare by mid-2026. Yeah, 5 billion. So that's another massive chunk of the supply that they want to kind of tie on up. Now, you know that I had to do the math on this, right? At least at this point. $10 billion in XRP, around 5% of the supply, via mXRP, plus 5 billion XRP via Flare, and together you get roughly 8 billion XRP potentially locked away. So for context, that's about 13% of the current XRP supply. So just imagine, 13% of a cryptocurrency effectively taken out of circulation. It's kind of like if 13% of all of the houses in your town were suddenly off of the market. right, the remaining houses would get a lot more attention and higher bids. In Econ 101 terms, if supply goes down and demand stays steady, or even rises, you can probably guess what tends to happen to prices. Well, it's kind of a big deal. And the craziest part, DAI suggested that just these two projects alone could trigger a supply shock that XRP fans have been kind of whispering about. Now, crypto, folks have speculated for quite some time that one day there's going to be a supply shock. Basically a fancy way of saying, not enough XRP to go around. Price goes boom, right? Now, I always kind of took it with a bit of a grain of salt, but here we are, and we have two kind of concrete initiatives with rather big ambitions that could actually make it plausible. So, before we all start screaming Lambo time or anything crazy, let me hit pause and be super clear on something right here. That this might just shock you, but I'm not a financial advisor, and nothing in this video is financial advice. Cryptocurrencies are highly volatile, and you could lose all of the money that you invest. You should always do your own research and consult a qualified professional. After all, your investments are entirely your responsibility, and you should know that nothing is ever guaranteed when it comes to investing. Neither I, this channel, nor YouTube are liable for any losses, and this video is for entertainment and educational purposes only. Alright, with that out of the way, let's get back to the story. I wasn't about to just take those big claims at face value. Sure, right, you've got a couple of networks, mXRP, FXRP, want to kind of lock up as much XRP as possible, but how much have they actually got right now? So it's time to check the receipts then, right? So the mXRP product literally just launched, unveiled at the XRP 2025 event, and so far it holds only 3.851 million XRP across its system. So, at the moment, the mXRP sidechain and XRP ledger combined hold only around 3.851 million XRP. So that's roughly 0.006% of the total XRP circulating supply. In other words, a tiny drop in the huge bucket. Now, visually, it's kind of a blip on the radar. So yeah, you've got a long way to go to hit that $10 billion target. But hey, it's early days, right? And every kind of marathon starts with a single step, right? And as for Flare's FXRP, well, that system isn't anywhere near 5 billion yet either. Flare is up and running as a network, but getting billions of XRP on it is a pretty big ask because, at least at the time, it's not there yet, and it's likely going to take significant amount of time if it ever happens at all. So these are rather enormous targets from mXRP and FXRP, and for now, they are just that, targets. So it could take months or even years to even approach those kind of numbers, assuming that everything goes smoothly. Now, while I was pondering all of that, another puzzle piece did fall into my lap. I saw some data about XRP on exchanges, and it actually stopped me in my tracks, specifically Coinbase. I've covered it a couple of times on the channel so far. Now, one of the biggest crypto exchanges out there right now has seen its XRP stash absolutely nosedive. So in June, Coinbase had around 970 million XRP in its cold storage wallets. By September 20th, it was down to about 32 million XRP. Now, I had to, of course, double check those numbers, even triple check them by the point of this video, because it sounds so insane. That is roughly a 96% drop. Now, Coinbase went from 52 cold wallets holding XRP to just 2 wallets in the span of just a few months, practically overnight in crypto terms. And Coinbase hasn't actually offered any explanation for this huge move, which of course has led to all kinds of speculation. Are big institutions or whales buying up XRP and then withdrawing it to private storage? Did Coinbase just shuffle the funds around for some internal reasons? We don't actually know, but the community chatter is that the exchange balances, not just Coinbase by the way, are drying up. And it kind of fits our supply shock theme here, doesn't it? So less XRP on exchanges means that if you or I want to go and buy some, well, there actually are fewer sell orders available at any given moment. So in theory, that makes it much easier for the price to spike if enough people want in at the same time. Now, all of this got me wondering, aside from these projects and the exchange moves, how much XRP is actually out there truly circulating? I mean, not locked up or spoken for, that can actually trade hands in the market then. And it turns out that actually a huge portion of XRP is already tied up and effectively out of the game. So let's check this out. Ripple, the company behind XRP, it holds a massive chunk. They've got about 37.3 billion XRP locked in Ripple's escrow. Now, these are like time-locked vaults that release XRP slowly. Now, Ripple also holds about 3.5 billion XRP in liquid form, not in escrow, for their operations. Then the co-founders have their stashes too. Chris Larsen has roughly 2.3 billion XRP. Arthur Brito has about 1.3 billion XRP. That all adds up to, the following: 37.3 plus 3.5 plus 2.3 plus 1.3, and you get 44.4 billion XRP, which is roughly 44.4% of the total supply. It's actually accounted for. Basically, almost half of all of the XRP is spoken for by just a few entities and is likely to be flooding, or at least to be flooding the market, unlikely to, I should say, anytime soon. It's just not going to happen. Now, one XRP commentator actually put it quite perfectly. People don't realize just how little XRP is actually left for the rest of us. And he's not wrong or right. And in fact, actually, I would say he's absolutely right, because beyond just Ripple and its founders, you've also got institutional players now stepping in. So for instance, there's an investment fund called Purpose ETF that holds 29.6 million XRP, and another Canadian fund, 3IQ, holding 45 million XRP. Now, those numbers might not sound huge next to the billions, but let's think about these as long-term vaults. Those funds aren't day trading XRP. They're holding it for the long haul on behalf of investors. And analysts that I came across, who goes by the names of 24 Hours Crypto Online, estimated that retail investors, regular folks like you and I, probably hold no more than actually 15% of the XRP supply, just 15%. So that small slice is all that might actually be truly in circulation among everyday traders. And the cavalry might not even be here yet. Just imagine if major banks, JP Morgan, Wells Fargo, Goldman Sachs, you name it, they all decided to dip their toes into XRP some point down the line. Well, if big financial institutions actually start buying and holding XRP, well, that's going to be, it's going to kind of, sequester a lot more tokens away from the open market. Plus, there's chatter about spot XRP ETFs on the horizon too. So if an XRP ETF launches, it will hold, or at least have to hold, actual XRP in custody to back up all of the shares. That could mean millions or billions more XRP getting taken off of the exchanges and parked in cold storage as part of the fund's reserves. In short, guys, a lot of XRP could end up locked away in institutional vaults or smart contracts. So, adding it all up, I'm seeing a pattern here. A lot of XRP is quietly being locked away or removed from circulation. Whether it's through new DeFi projects like mXRP or FXRP, or people pulling coins off of the exchanges, or even Ripple's huge escrow or institutions loading up, the pool of freely tradable XRP is shrinking. Now, at this point, I'm kind of blown away. I expected to find something interesting when I started this journey, but I didn't expect all of the pieces to fit together so cleanly. It's kind of like every rock that I turned over was screaming supply shock incoming. Now, let me temper that excitement just a little bit, because I'm not saying that XRP's price will automatically skyrocket tomorrow morning. Nothing in crypto is as simple as that or ever guaranteed. Right? But I am saying that after looking into all of these numbers and the facts, I've gone from rolling my eyes at that phrase, XRP supply shock, to actually raising an eyebrow. Like, maybe there is actually really something to this. For example, right, I hopped into our free educational Discord server. The link, by the way, is in the description. Come and join us. We've got a great community there. Anyway, I was there to share these findings, and a lot of people there echoed the feeling that something big could be brewing for XRP's supply. Others kind of wisely pointed out that none of that really matters if there isn't enough demand to meet the dwindling supply. And that's also right, it's kind of key. It's true. Now, you can have all of the supply shock potential in the world, but if nobody actually wants the asset, well, the price still won't budge. So it's kind of like having the only ice cream shop in town during winter, right? It doesn't matter if you're the only game in town if there's no one actually craving ice cream, right? So demand is the other side of the equation, and we can't forget that either. Now, on a personal note, this whole investigation did make me at least take a stock of my own XRP stash and my own strategy. Now, I'm not making any sudden moves here, but I'm definitely paying more attention now. If I were to accumulate just a bit more XRP, I'd do it on an exchange that I trust. Here's a quick side note though, right? If you are looking or thinking about where to actually trade or accumulate crypto, then I do personally use Blowfin. And just a heads up, there's a link in the description that is an affiliate link that actually does support the channel here at no extra cost to yourself. I also use BitGet for some of my day trading too. There's a link down there too for that, and there's also an affiliate link. I mention these only because I actually do use them, and they've been very solid for me personally. Now, of course, you've got to use whatever platform you are comfortable with. Just make sure that it's a reputable one and that it is secure. So, where do we stand after all of this? I'd actually say that I'm cautiously optimistic. The entire adventure started with a sketchy sounding headline and ended up uncovering what feels like a hidden story in, well, plain sight. XRP's supply dynamics are indeed changing, and if mXRP and Flare, or FXRP, even kind of achieve a fraction of their goals, well, if Coinbase's vanishing XRP reserves are a part of a much larger trend, if Ripple and the usual suspects keep hodling, and if new big players do jump on in, well, it could genuinely tilt the supply-demand balance. We might look back on this period as the start of a major squeeze in the XRP availability. But hey, as I've said, nothing in crypto is ever guaranteed. Maybe it'll take way longer for a supply shock effects to actually be felt. Maybe demand for XRP won't materialize in the way that we hope. Or some other kind of thing like locked XRP could unexpectedly return to circulation, right? You always have to keep an open mind with this stuff. The future has a way of kind of surprising us, especially in the crypto world. All I know is that I'm going to be watching these developments like a hawk. I plan to keep track of mXRP and FXRP growth, keep an eye on those exchange wallet numbers, and see if institutions keep quietly accumulating. I'll definitely share any big updates with all of you guys, so probably first in the Discord, and then maybe in a follow-up video if something huge really does happen, like, let's say, mXRP suddenly locking 1 billion XRP, or an ETF actually is getting approved and launched. Now, this has turned into a little bit of a personal mission for me now, because I'm genuinely quite fascinated about what happens next. Now, this was one heck of a journey, and I'm really glad that you all guys kind of stuck around with me for it. It's not every day that a piece of news actually lives up to the hype and gets even a skeptic like me a little bit more excited. I learned that it's always worth digging into these things a little deeper. Sometimes the real story is in the details that most people aren't actually seeing. So for now, guys, smash that like button, hit subscribe for more stories like this, and I will catch you all in the next one.